The Rock is probably not going to wrestle again. At this rate, he might not even appear on a WWE show again. So, in his place, Triple Nose and Nick Kant have found a zesty, cringy, Danhausen-sized blowhard who grew up wishing he was The Rock. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you The Pebble! Cody Rhodes is back. I think he was back last week, I've already forgotten. And it appears Randy Orton is selling the punt he handed Rhodes at WrestleMania more than the guy who actually took it. Rhodes cut a standard babyface champ promo, perfectly inoffensive, perfectly boring, and then it happened. Oh yes, or rather, should I say, oh no. Ricky Starks' music hit, and the crowd went mild.
Who?
This prancing cruiserweight got his Make-A-Wish fulfilled by making it onto an A-grade show he has, frankly, no business being on. I'm young, he said. And look, while 36 is not old by any stretch, Starks is hardly a beacon of youthful energy either, especially when you consider guys like Obafemi are actually still under 30. And New Japan, right now, have a 23-year-old world champion. Starks introduced himself to Rhodes, hyping himself up with the mannerisms and delivery of a coked-up high school girl finally trying to prove she can be one of the cool kids and get that cherry popped before she goes off to college. He called himself a SmackDown free agent. I'm sure most fans know what I'm about to say. It should go without saying. But you're not a free agent if you've signed with a show. You can be a SmackDown roster member, or you could be a free agent. But you can't be both. And the best zinger of all, if you can even call it that, he claims he's everything men in the audience's baby mamas wish they were. Well, let me tell you something. Most baby mamas would prefer for their partners / the father of their children to be heterosexual so the relationship can work out. Just an FYI. Oh my goodness! What even is this? And what really kicks me is how all these WWE mercs, these butts masquerading as humans, laughed at what a pathetically dull, vanilla, midget rock knockoff Starks was in AEW, and they were right in that instance, but now that he's here, they have to pretend he's Mr. Wonderful, figuratively speaking. Obviously, he could never fill Paul Orndorff's shoes. And speaking of AEW, actually, back when Starks was still there, Tony of House Nepo tried very hard on a few occasions to make Starks a big thing. He got high-profile feuds with the likes of CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and MJF. And what he successfully proved, time and again, was that his old tag team partner in Team Taz, Powerhouse Hobbs, was clearly the one actually worth pushing instead. The whole super arrogant heel shtick only works if one actually has the charisma and presence to make it feel impactful, as if the heel could actually back up what they're saying. Saints' hero, The Rock, was an absolute master of this kind of character, maybe even the best ever in this regard. But then again, The Rock was also cool. He was heavyweight-sized, he was charismatic, his matches were good, he was a master of crowd control, and he was in possession of a fairly original character and persona at the time. Not a try-hard knockoff, fanboy homage to a legend from yesteryear, which unfortunately is what The Rock is now, yesteryear. We'll never have a star as good as that again. Don't let that insufferable dweeb sidekick of Jim Cornette's over on his podcast fool you. The Rock is an all-time great star. Anyways, I will say on a positive note, credit to Cody Rhodes for keeping a straight face here, no pun intended in regards to Saints, and playing along to quite simply the lamest promo of the year. Thus far, in the WWE, maybe TNA have had something worse, but I refuse to watch them, so I don't know for sure. True professionalism, in Rhodes' case, right here on this show. To stay serious and in character, in the face of this limp-wristed, high-pitched goof, who kept looking at the floor like his bad case of indigestion, was quickly turning into nausea. Anyways, this was awful. And it got worse. Rhodes was placed into a non-title match with this goof. Now, back in AEW, Rhodes famously had an exhaustingly competitive match with embarrassment to the industry, Sonny Piss. Kenny Omega, meanwhile, did the right thing when he wrestled Piss and squashed Piss when they wrestled. You see, if you are an upper-card main event attraction in professional wrestling, you should be above undercard talent, especially goofball undercard talent that will clearly never rise up the card. Steve Austin, for example, would not even share the ring with talent he deemed too far beneath his level. Cody Rhodes seemingly never got that memo, often going through 20-minute slugs with nobodies a top dog should be able to thump in quick order, like Sonny Piss in AEW, for an example. Now, I bring that up because Rhodes made that same mistake here. I appreciate that apparently Starks and Rhodes are friends in real life, so maybe he just wanted to do his friend a favor. But all the same, Starks immediately established himself as little more than an unfunny comedy goober the crowd couldn't care less about, and Rhodes, the champion, the arguable face of the whole WWE over the past few years, puts himself through a bland, needlessly competitive bout with him. Worse still, Rhodes went through the humiliation ritual of selling for Starks' weaker than a Blue Label beer offense, including his zesty, hip-gyrating spaz-out during his version of Old School. This was appalling stuff. I know a lot of wrestling fans and channels and all this stuff will constantly say things are the worst ever. Oh, this was the worst Raw I've ever seen. Oh, this guy's the worst champion I've ever seen. And normally it's nonsense, it's hyperbole to try and drive up clickbait potential. Sure, it is. It's very true. But this, jokes aside, character aside, interest aside, just speaking as someone who watched the show this morning, this was quite simply, genuinely, one of the most embarrassingly cringe promos I've ever seen, and a big part of why it was so bad was because it was presented as an uppercard main event deal. I don't mind when there's a bit of silliness in the undercard. You can be a goof there. You know, it's fine. People like Danhausen or Kit Wilson, they have their place. And they understand what their place is. But this was a fine example of someone who does not know their role. This was appalling stuff. Even worse than being a bland, vanilla midget indie talent is being a bland, vanilla midget indie talent who somehow has the gall to think they're the next big, larger-than-life star of the sports entertainment world, all while stinking the joint out like a bad dump after a bad Indian meal at 2 a.m. Shocking stuff! Just shocking! Oh, my goodness me. Anyway, some other stuff on this show before we get back to the absolute catastrophe of the Starks debut. Fatal Boredom are here, and they're riding high on the piped-in booze of fake heat the WWE are trying very hard to use to convince us they're gonna be some kind of big deal. JC Lame got a big win here over Charlotte Facelift, and while it wasn't clean, she was booked to look competitive with the clone masquerading as Ric Flair's daughter. The match was fine for its purpose of establishing Fatal Boredom as conniving heels looking to make a splash on the main roster. So yeah, fair enough. Good. Okay, fine. A new star won. That's a good thing. I guess. Maybe. We then came out, taking a break, I presume, from trashing fans on social media, like she wouldn't be flipping burgers in Adelaide, contemplating doing an OnlyFans if it wasn't for the fans who watch this crap product, to remind us all she can't really do her strong girl moves anymore, but refuses to take time off to sort out her health anyway. So JC Lame easily escaped a very weak Riptide attempt. Yeah, great. The feel-good, allegedly, old man tour that is Damian Priest and R-Truth as tag team champions continued next with a win over Nathan Frazer and the Spanish star WWE cruelly robbed of a face. Gutted by commercials, as you'd expect. This was a very basic contest, to be honest with you, with the Fraxian boys putting most of the work in and keeping the action relatively fast-paced. Priest was presented as the powerhouse, carrying his team to victory while Truth ate a beating in the closing stretch, a useless jobber. One can't help but wonder if this is the early clues of a Priest heel turn on Truth down the line for being dead weight. We know that type of storyline, the friends falling out is Triple Nose's favourite. Priest as a face has definitely run its course, he's stale as anything. Don't be surprised if this happens once they lose the tag belts. The interchangeable Nepo babies who Solo Sikoa keeps around then made a challenge for the gold or something, I don't know, who cares. Rehashed Bloodline crap next as Sikoa called out Jacob Fatu. The NP Usos came out instead for more gibberish masquerading as a promo before Hikuleo, or whatever he's called now, was actually allowed to look surprisingly strong by thumping both of them. The Usos have returned to being Roman Reigns' groupies, completely demolishing the whole point of the original Bloodline split saga in the first place. Cody Rhodes and Sami Lame, meanwhile, are no longer friends, because every storyline revolves around friendships. Or, if you're lucky, wanting to prove someone is the best in the ring. It can only be option A or option B. Triple Nose really needs to start putting more interesting prompts into his chatbot for future booking. Now, as I was saying a few minutes ago, the Rhodes-Starks match succeeded admirably in making Rhodes look like just another guy, rather than the supposed quarterback of the business he likes to present himself as. Starks stumbling about butcherly in the last minute led to one of the most dangerous-looking crossroads ever caught on camera. The good news here was Gunther is being given something to do again, thumping Rhodes post-match and making it perfectly clear that he is the next challenger for the gold. Gunther and Rhodes have had some decent interactions in the past, and the eventual title bout ought to be fairly high quality. That being said, Rhodes vs. Fatu and Reigns vs. Gunther seemed like the more logical title programs to run coming out of WrestleMania. Both of them were hinted at before WrestleMania as well. The brand switching suggests some prior booking plans might have been torn up last minute. The Orton vs. Rhodes feud is also up in the air. You can't just let it end on Orton punting Rhodes to hell. The babyface does need to get his revenge, but the story heading into the event was so poorly received and horribly handled that it needs several hard pivots and attention-grabbing angles to restore any hope of fan interest, which is a real shame because heel Randy Orton got massive reactions right up until Scat McAfee got involved. Anyways, the rest of this show, nothing that exciting happened. I don't think it's going to be interesting to hear me reviewing it, frankly. It's not going to be interesting for me to say into this microphone. That's good enough reason to not bother, really. A couple of lame tag matches where there was a mile of separation on half the moves, with everything looking cumbersome, rehearsed, and awkward at best. No semblance of a real fight feel, no stakes to invest in, no intensity. Just going through the motions of a promotion that we now have had confirmed is turning into a cesspit of soulless AI slop. A comedy segment involving a dead gingerbread man made for a semi-neat showcase, funnily enough, of Trick Williams and Sami Zayn's chops for comedy. Still an unbelievably stupid segment, though. Especially considering that Sami Zayn slowly losing his mind over his defeats and fan rejection is the most interesting thing he's done in a long time. The audience are behind Williams, they've had enough of Zayn. This is being incorporated into their story. A serious double turn with Williams going face could be very interesting, and Zayn as a heel has a lot of potential, funnily enough. He was a good heel a few years ago, he was very funny, he was good at getting heat. But as it stands, this just became a meme feud revolving around the gingerbread's in memoriam thing, which was kind of funny. I can appreciate some people would laugh at that. It was absurd, but it's okay to have a laugh occasionally. It's just a weird fit for a storyline about a babyface going down the dark path, so to speak. And of course, wouldn't you know, there was more Danhausen nonsense, as the goofy heels he's been at war with for a while now messed him about, working on getting the better of him and luring him around backstage with some money thing. I admit to you, I was making lunch while this part was on. And frankly, regardless of what happens now, we all know at Backlash they're gonna get thumped by whoever the mystery partner of Danhausen will be. Amusing as he is for some fans, Danhausen is fast moving into overexposed territory, rather than the niche novelty act he functions best as. Now, you could say my reviewing of certain portions of the show this week was rather lazy. Underdeveloped. Barely any attention or interest paid. Well then, now you know how many of us, myself included, felt watching such a sterile, colour-by-numbers chore of computer-generated booking. I think it's fair to say many of us got into wrestling as kids. We still found it an amusing thing to watch once or twice a week as we grew up. Nice bit of trash TV. But it really is at the point where it's almost miserable to watch, almost sad, knowing it used to be such a fun and entertaining medium on the TV, to now being this. This AI-generated botch festival full of nepo idiots, inhuman and corporatized, sterile, all about the ads, over anything else. Hot garbage. And often it's not even the talent's fault, bar the crappy ones. The fact is, this company under TKO was fast going into a creative grave. And even the biggest fans in the world, the biggest grifters in the world, eventually it will just become too blur, too bland, too disinteresting to bother reviewing, discussing, analysing, if that were even possible with how dead it is. It's a shame. Genuinely, like an actual shame.